All right, so bootstrapping the TCC database and what my journey was to actually get this done. So a little bit about me is I'm a Mac sysadmin at Leica Studios. We are a stop motion animation company, and I sometimes tweet, so you can check me here. All my online accounts are this Zolotkey. So a little bit about my environment. So as you can see, we have a very complex environment for our main production group, which is stages. And so over on the left side, over there, on my left, your guys' right, is our stage capture machines. They're iMacs. And because of this, we only have one stage tech that goes around to each individual, to all the stages if something goes wrong. And we try to minimize how often stage techs go onto the actual stages, because just bumping a light can ruin a month's worth of work or more. So we try to minimize how often we get on there. So for us, the objective for me was to adapt to, with 10.14, we had to adapt to the security changes that it came up with. We had to allow our configuration management tools to change newly protected files, especially in like the passwords for root and some other accounts as well. And then also that whole stage thing is making sure that we use, since we use screen sharing, so that way the tech doesn't have to actively go physically into the stage. So we want to make sure we can replicate the kickstart command in 10.14 that allowed remote control, because it did change to where you had to manually do it in the GUI, but we don't want the stage tech to actively go on stage and click that button all the time. And we don't have MDM on stages, so we had to find a way to do it without the MDM. So the problem is to get this SQLite database to be bootstrapped, so that way when you first start that machine, it is able to read that and have it pre-configured. So the process was, for me, is I first started the kickstart, did the kickstart command, and I noticed where it has the 10.14 nice good alert where it can only be activated through system preferences. So I went through that and went to the system preferences, verified that it did start. I wanted to confirm it, make sure that it was enabled, and I tried to remote in, didn't let me connect. But I did also connect, for this demonstration I did remote login, and then so in 10.14 you get to see full disk access SSHD was included in this. So I wanted to see what was part of the TCC database that changed. So I noticed here that only the SSHD or configuration management was enabled, not screen sharing. So I did it the Apple way. I went back, manually added this and removed it just to see if anything changed. And I noticed now you have the post-event screen sharing. And so now that I had a working database that allowed me to replicate, to have the stage tech be able to connect to the machines and be able to remote into them, I need to figure out how to deploy this. So first was I packaged up the TCC database and put it in a package to try to overwrite it. And so one way is we used this bootstrapper from Greg, and was able to install packages, run scripts, and Greg actually has a nice talk about this for those that have not heard about Bootstrap, and I have a link to that I'll add later. And then so after I installed it, the PKG, I went to go check to verify the actual SQLite database was installed, but I came to this, nothing showed up. But I wanted to see if it actually installed. It did install, but there's some different factors that came into play. So I noticed that since it was set, there was some file attributes that were missing. So this is what showed up after I installed it, but we needed to make sure that we had the permissions to get back into the root list. And this is what you should see. So I did a newly installed system, looked at the file attributes and the file flags. I noticed that the com.apple.rootlist is just a file attribute, and however, you can't set or change the attribute, especially the rootlist attribute, while you're booted up into the system. So what I did was went back to using the Bootstrapper and the recovery partition, and now to figure out how to add that root list and file flags back onto the TCC database. The one thing about the recovery partition is it's basic unit commands. You can change the actual recovery has chflags command in it. It does not have extra be able to use xadder because it is a Python module, and so the one thing that's nice is that there's no safeguards, and it has the same kind of kernel almost. But there is a command that it does have, which is chroot. And one thing that's nice about it is that you can use a different environment. So you can actually get into the installed environment that you've already set down. That actually has the xadder command. And so you're able to run one thing that's nice is that you're able to run single commands from that. And even though I know a lot of people use chroot to actually jump into the environment, whereas I can do it in just one command. So I was able to put down the TCC database on the new host, use the chroot command to add the com.apple.rootlist TCC extra attribute and get the restricted flag back on it. And then another way too is, since it is the SQLite command, this works as well, is just be able to put down the SQLite command and insert it into the database. One thing that I noticed is I just tested this on 10.15 on Catalina, and I was able to do it. However, there was one more attribute that needed to be added, which was the screen capture, but it works just great for my testing so far. And so when I went back to the fresh install with Bootstrapper, came back up, noticed that all the access I had was still available. So in review, we were able to adapt to the 10.14, being able to have to manually use the GUI is not needed anymore for us, so we can actually roll this out in Bootstrapper and not have to have the CHTech click that thing without an MDM. And this will probably work until Apple fixes it, like always. But here's a few links to the talk, and that's it for me.